Hello, in this video we're going to discuss medicine part 1, the history of medicine in heaven. So, early treatment, we think back to when God was first created. All he had was the manna biscuit. And there were times where God injured himself in soul form and had to retreat back into his refilling chamber, refill his soul with a new body, and he consumed manna biscuit and ice in order to heal himself. So there was some particularly bad incidents. One was where he discovered combustion in vacuum, and he burned himself severely. You'll see this in the book in the beginning. He burned himself quite severely and had to go back into his refilling chamber and refilled his soul with a new body. And he continued to stay there and consume manna biscuit and ice, and eventually he was healed of it. Another time he amputated himself through a wormhole. So with a wormhole, his arm passed close to a wormhole while his body remained in a different in a location that he was at, and he turned off the wormhole and it took his arm off. Nearly killed him, because with soul part amputation, the soul chassis dies within 4 hours. So in his case, he went back into the refilling chamber, refilled his soul with a new body, and consumed manna biscuit, and it saved him. Okay, so in soul form, the soul is extremely delicate and fragile and can easily be destroyed. That's why humankind's souls aren't actually on earth, they're in fact in heaven. Alright? And that is in order to protect them. So you'll find a patient who's had an amputation might still feel that their arm and leg is still there. That's because their actual body is in heaven with their soul, and the body parts are still there. So with the first planets that God created, where he's in atmosphere, he's underground, and he created drinking stations. And this is essentially a hole in the wall with a wormhole that emits water, and it just trickles into the hole, and it fills with water. So when he first tried this, the water was tepid, made him sick. So he crushed manna biscuit up and put it inside, and that made it taste bitter, but he would not feel, and it would quench his thirst, but it would not make him sick and go tepid and make him sick. And soul refilling is the most common way in which God healed himself and others if they were injured. So a broken arm or leg, normally he would just say you need a new chassis, and the patient would be placed inside a refilling chamber, which is made of wormhole element and is sphere in shape on the inside and outside. He'd use a wormhole to place them in there, and then close. He would reach in, touch the inside of the chamber, and inject gravity from his finger, and it would start the refilling process. The patient's body would decouple from the soul chassis, and then they would have a wormhole emitting soul material inside them, and it would refill the soul with a new body. It takes 8 seconds. The very first surgery was the male angels, in particular the Gabriel batch. With God, when he was created, it was in the presence of zero gravity. So his soul and body, the penis foreskin wasn't covered over. But the presence of gravity for male angels, including in this history, was covered over by skin. So the foreskin completely covered it, and the male angels, when they were first created, died within days, weeks, or months from not being able to urinate. It's extremely painful. So God had to create the first knife, which was out of a type of rock, and he tested it on himself and found that he could cut the skin off, the foreskin, and he then did it to the male angels, the Gabriel batch in particular, the first ones, and they were extremely happy about this, that he had removed the foreskin and they no longer died from what had been happening to them. And they said, it's holy. Like his penis, it's holy. So they're all naked, no one's wearing any clothing, they're underground in a tunnel, and they said it's holy. And so holy became a special word in heaven and is a special word on earth because of it. So a male angel came to earth, and it was, if you remember the story about Joseph and the coat, and his name was Nom. He's from the Gabriel batch. He in fact circumcised some of his sons, and that was due to the fact that he was from the Gabriel batch. So that's where circumcision came from. It is not necessary to be circumcised here on earth. Some people do it. It's not necessary. There are people in heaven that still have their foreskin. So later, when, for example, with Jesus, so God and Mary's firstborn is Jesus. When he was born, he did not need to be circumcised. And God never circumcised him because his body, when he was born, already had a hole where the penis was so he could urinate. Otherwise God would have circumcised him. With God and his descendants, they all have a unique ability to emit gravity from their palms, and Jesus and Gabriel, Jesus' brother, they're able to resuscitate people by placing their palms on the chest and emitting gravity, which restarted the heart. So there was a couple instances where people were unconscious, and that's how they revived them. Jesus later came up with crushed manna with water in order to heal people of injuries.